This is your host, Dub FFG, with the Fantasy Football GOAT Strategies. And today, we're going to talk about the Week 3 must-start and sleepers, and amongst a few other things. Let's get to it. First, let's recap Week 2. Week 2, we made 10 picks, 5 correct, 5 incorrect. That's a 50% success rate, down 20% from the previous week. That's not good. So, Week 2 then wasn't that good for us here at FFGS, but we look to improve. Big fantasy weeks last week in Week 2. You're looking at Josh Allen, Tua, Waddle, and Hill both. Bills, Bucks, Jags, Lamar Jackson, St. Brown, Jalen Hurts, you name it. It was a pretty good fantasy week for a number of fantasy players. So, let's go on to Week 3. Week 3 must start. We're looking at Deontay Johnson versus the Browns, Micah Parsons versus the Giants, Eagles defense versus the Commanders, Chargers versus Jacksonville. Those are your must-starts for Week 3. In addition to that, our sleepers for Week 3, we're looking at Jared Goff versus the Vikings and Amari Cooper versus the Steelers on Thursday night. Our stat combo for the week, Tua Tagovailoa compared or comboed with either Hill or Waddle. Either one would do, so you shouldn't go wrong with either of those combos. Continuing on with Week 3, Week 3 is basically a test week for you. This is really going to test you or tell you what you have in your fantasy football leagues or what you have on your fantasy football teams. Do you have a pretender or a contender? Who knows? You will find out this week what you actually have, because after this week, you're going to be looking to do some movements, trades, droppings, more waiver wires, particularly if you're on the losing end or below 500. Big marquee games for the week: Dolphins versus Bills, Packers versus Bucks. Now, out of these two games, particularly the Dolphins and the Bills, play all of your fantasy players that you have for those teams. Of course, all the offensive players, Dolphins and Bills, and ironically, or this is one of the fewer times that I would ever tell you to also play the defensive teams. These two defensive teams are turnover defenses. If you go back and look at the preseason rankings or the preseason Fantasy Rising series that we did, and we talked about the defenses for 2022, the Dolphins and the Bills we ranked in the top 5. Both of these defenses get turnovers, and the Dolphins actually score more on defense than the Bills do. So this, ideally, an expectation is to be a shootout come Sunday. But sometimes we know expectations are not met. So, but the Bills and the Dolphins, yeah, play any of those players that you have, play them. Packers and Bucks, you got Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, marquee matchup. Both of those QBs should do well. The wide receivers for the Bucks should be more valuable than the Packers wide receivers this particular week. So Week 3 again is your mirror. It's going to be a mirror to tell you who you really are. Now, going back to the Dolphins and Bills, now most analysts are now telling you, go pick Tua up, go pick him up. Well, if you look at FFGS Waiver Wire Pickups for this week, for Week 3, we didn't list that. Why? Because if you followed us throughout the season and preseason, you would know that we had Tua to be ranked in the top 5 fantasy football quarterbacks. So he should never be on the waiver wire. You should have drafted him somewhere, some form, whatever round you may have gotten him in. You should have drafted him. But again, some people are always late to the party, and understandably so. That's why FFGS is one of a kind. Just to recap, Week 3, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest fantasy team of them all? You will soon find out. This is Dub FFG, your fantasy football GOAT strategist. Till next time, it's that time of year again, and it's time to get your team gear. From hats and apparel, Liz has the answers. This season, Liz has your favorite team's sideline gear. Click the link in the description to get your favorite team's gear. Lids.